What up, everyone? I'm SteveVon Lamar, and this is my beautiful wife,
Britt to Shay.
And we want to welcome you to the SteveVon and Britt Unfiltered podcast. And we want you to know we're not experts, but we share our unfiltered experiences in life, love, and everything in between.
So be sure to subscribe to our podcast, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on any podcast platforms.
So check out the show notes for everything you need for this episode of the podcast. What up, everybody?
What's up, everybody?
We're back for another episode.
Episode 4.
Episode 4.
Yes.
It's getting real.
Season 1.
Season 1.
Episode 4.
Episode 4, SteveVon and Britt Unfiltered podcast.
Yes, and we are your host. I am Britt Tashay.
And I'm SteveVon Lamar.
Yes, and we're going to go ahead and get right into it because, you know, we have lots and lots of fun things to talk about today. So much has happened in the world. So welcome to the podcast, everybody. And today we're talking all about, we like to call it AAA, like the insurance.
You'll need some for this AAA.
Because it's all about arguments. So yeah, we're going to get into it. But first, before we go there, if you missed the first 3 episodes, go back, binge watch, binge listen.
Yes.
Please leave us a review and let us know how you're enjoying the podcast.
Yes, I want to make sure it's helpful for all listeners and viewers.
Yes, and it helps us as well. It helps us to reach more people, reach our audience, as long as you do that.
Yes, so please go ahead.
So anyways, we're going to go right into our first segment, and that is Sips Tea.
Sips Tea. We got some hot tea today.
Oh, my goodness.
It's piping hot.
It's so hot.
I mean, even if you're listening to this weeks later, it's probably still hot.
Yes. So let's get into it. So if you live in the world today, if you are not under a rock, off the grid or whatever, then even if you're off the grid, you might know about this. Honestly,
you definitely probably heard it.
I'm telling you, it's taken over our timelines, our feeds. It's just been crazy. But I heard somebody call it the slap heard all over the world.
Yes. I knew it. The next morning I woke up and my feed was going crazy. Yes,
it is the Will Smith and Chris Rock incident. Let's call it that.
Fiasco.
The fiasco. So I want to talk about that today because everybody has an opinion. So many people have an opinion.
Yeah, we all do.
Yeah, as we, since it was broadcasted and done on a public platform, such a public platform at that, it gives everybody the right to have commentary, so sure. I kind of want to talk about it. And honestly, for me, I want to hear your opinion. But before I do, I want to preface it with the whole incident is just kind of weird because with everything that Will and Jada have been going through over this past year, it's I don't know if this was the straw that broke the camel's back or something, because their marriage has been under heat for a year now since the whole August thing that happened, we're
not talking about the month, if you know what
I mean.
Because apparently Will is snapping even in March. Or should I say snapping and slapping.
But so he, he's been kind of, I think, going through a lot over this past year, both of them, but I think it's been a lot on him. And so I think that's part of what we're seeing, the history of the entanglements and everybody having a public opinion about their marriage and all of these things. So I think it kind of just boiled over. So I want to know your opinion. What did you think about the slap? Everybody has an opinion on what Will should have done, could have done, but what do you think?
Well, first I'm going to preface this with this is a no judgment zone.
Yes, okay? No judgment zone.
Don't judge me on my unfiltered response because this is Unfiltered podcast. I'm going to tell you this before I get into anything, and you can judge me all you want. I know I'm a pastor. I know I'm a good guy.
Don't judge me, judge mama.
But at the end of the day, if somebody's disrespecting my wife, a slap might be the best thing that could happen because it can get worse, You know what I'm saying?
Messy, like Kanye
said, and so me personally, I just don't want, just pray it doesn't happen to me or you or whoever, it just happened to be, here's the bigger picture. It was on a bigger stage.
Yeah.
So it's of course going to be blown up more.
Mm-hmm.
I've been to some places where people acted out because their wife was disrespected or dishonored, or a spouse. And, people are all going through, like, we talked about this with Kim and Kanye. It's like, you can take a microscope on something because you take something micro and make it macro because you see it all. You just seen it on TV.
Right.
But what about your home?
Mm-hmm.
Right. What are you doing in the privacy of your home as well? So kind of want to start out with that as well. So there's no judginess from that.
Right.
At the same time, I can understand Chris Rock's side as well. It's like the business is joking, is comedy. Mm-hmm. Will Smith is one of the funniest, silliest guys that we know. And so he said funny stuff too as well.
Yeah.
But in a sense, beyond the smack, and I mean, there's some verbiage that went back and forth and on some of the, and it was real.
Because I think everybody thought that it was a joke.
Yeah.
And like it was fake until Will's commentary after, when he went and sat down.
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's very intense. And when you know how they say, like, when you read the Bible, if you hear something twice, like it's meant to get your attention. Right. And Will repeated it twice.
I was like, if I was Chris Rock, I wouldn't even say J. I won't even use J's anymore now.
Just that's what he said. After he said it the second time, Chris Rock said, because he told him to keep his wife's name out the mouth. Yeah. And so he said, okay, I will do that. I know he will never probably ever talk about Jada or anything concerning Will, not his kids, not his mama, not nobody.
Not at all.
Yeah.
So, sometimes, like I said, we don't know what we would do if we were in a situation. Right. So we can sit and judge from afar. But like I said, this one right here, this is my baby. So I even told my dad, I was being honest. I was like, I would let you talk about me, but don't talk about my baby. Don't talk about my wife.
Well, that was Sips Tea. So let's go ahead and get into our next segment, which is Pillow Talk. Pillow Talk. Pillow Talk is all about this intimate conversation where we bring you into, this is the most unfiltered side of the podcast. And today we're talking all about arguments, AAA. So the framework for this episode is, I saw this stat that said only 6% of couples are satisfied with how they handle conflict.
Man, that's a low number.
Yes. 6% of all couples. I don't know if that was specific to married couples or just, dating, engaged, whatever. But regardless,
it's probably true.
Even if it's just
if you're married, you probably got way more.
Oh my gosh.
You got so much more to handle and deal with, right? And then you throw kids in there. It's like,
jeez,
you worrying about their life, Jesus.
Right? That's so crazy.
I just felt like new arguments. New arguments for kids.
Right.
Shout out to all my parents out there.
Right. Lord, I'm praying for y'all, seriously, because it's a lot trying to figure out how to communicate properly. And it's like we talk about everything. I think that we realize in life that everything is a journey and it's all about navigating through it. So you probably will hear us use those terms a lot because we don't believe that things are just like microwave and it's just like, oh yeah, you can just start doing that. Even after you listen to the podcast, it's like, it's something that you're going to have to navigate through actually doing, So it's a journey. But the 6% of all couples that are satisfied with how they handle conflict, I just want to let everybody know, if you're not a part of that 6%, you're not alone.
Right, exactly.
Because there's a lot of people that's not included in that,
Seriously.
So I don't know. Like for me, I feel like we're on the journey, and where we started is just, we're light years ahead of where we started in our relationship.
Oh, for sure. And that's why I think you need to celebrate progress. And that's one of the things. So sometimes people don't celebrate progress. They just celebrate where they are. And what happens is they forget how far they've come.
Yeah. It's easy to forget when you don't celebrate.
Yeah. So it's always smart to pause. And this is like, of course, beyond marriages and relationships and like arguing, but it's like in anything that you do, like maybe you need to pause, pull out that old thing that you once were doing, the first song you ever wrote, or the first time you ever recorded a video, or first time you ever spoke or did a presentation at your job. Like Like all of those, even with being a parent, like, man, look at me 7 years later or 12 years later, I'm not doing that great with the preteen, but I was doing good as a mom when I first started or whatever. And you can celebrate it. And if you don't celebrate, that's why it's hard, because a lot of times people don't find ways to look at their wins and say, oh, I was winning there. I remember when I was struggling there. I remember when I was losing, and you can see progression.
Yeah.
And so I would encourage you to find some things to look back at and say, okay, this is where I've come from. And had some growth, and continue to make more strides to be better. Don't just stop there.
It's good. So for us, we always like to be transparent, and that's the best way to do this life, especially for us, because we do represent Christ, and we try to live our lives in a way where we can share the light and love of Jesus. Yeah. And we want to be as authentic and transparent as possible. So this week was a bit challenging for us. Yeah. We had a few disagreements that we had to navigate through. And I mean, we're good. So we're here. And we'll always be here, because that's what we've committed to each other. Exactly. But I was saying earlier that I was even talking to my brother and my mom on FaceTime last night, I think it was, and just kind of telling them, like, I have to do the work because of, and I'm going to get into this a little later, I have to do certain things that I had to change from the beginning of our relationship when we started, when I was, I was 17 and you were 18. So we were still kids. We didn't even know how to properly communicate, and we got married. You were 17? I was 17. Yeah. And you were 18. And then we
2005?
Yeah. Man. And so then we were literal kids. We did not know how to properly, we didn't know how to communicate, the right way. And so we didn't have, like, we had premarital counseling, but we didn't have like a regular counseling regimen. Right. We didn't have anybody coaching us through. We kind of like tried to follow examples that we had, or not follow examples that we had. Right. And just figure it out. We literally were like stumbling through how to do this life of marriage. Right. And we talk all about that in our previous podcast. If you missed it, go back and listen, because it'll give you much more context to what I'm saying. Yeah. But this week, I said all that to say that I'm proud of our growth and where we've come from, because it wasn't always pretty, y'all. Right. But we are still learning. We're still navigating through how to communicate properly, and how to, they say it's a proper way to argue and disagree. And so we're learning the best way that it works for us. So right. I want to get into it. There is a quote that says, "It's me and you versus the problem, not you versus me." And that's by Steve Marboli. And I thought that was, beautiful, because it's true that we do need to approach conflict, knowing that we're the team. And a lot of times I think we get confused with it being, we approach it as if we are opposite teams when we're on the same team. Sometimes it may feel like you're on offense and I'm on defense, or vice versa. Right. But we're on the same team nonetheless. Right. And so if we approach it like that, it's not me and you versus each other. It's me and you versus the problem. Yeah. But though that is beautiful, it's easier said than done a lot of times.
We have these quotables that just like, oh man, that's going to fix everything. Especially like in church. It's like we say a churchy line. It's like, oh man, that's powerful. I've done it. I'm a preacher, right? And I've put quotes in there, and I'm like, ooh. Even this week, I had, like, if you go back to the first podcast, one of the quotes that I say all the time, and Brittany quoted it, is like, you're not ready to love if you're not ready to learn. And I literally told her, we're gonna get into this, but I told her earlier, I was like, yeah, that sounds really good. Like, that sounds great, until you like, okay, I got to learn again. I got to learn something different. Right. I thought I learned that one before. I thought that lesson was done. That was in another part of the syllabus. When we got to go back because you missed something. Like, right. And that is for me, I can't speak for my wife or anybody else, but for me, it's like, man, I thought I passed that test. I'm trying to move on to the next stage. Right. Yeah. And so sometimes you have to go back and get a refresher, a review. And sometimes we forget that, and it's okay. If that's opening doors, you forget to open doors. You're not a bad husband if you don't do that. Ladies, he's not a bad guy, right? But if he's forgotten, he needs the reminder, right? Right. And that can refresh him, and then that may be a new thing that can turn you on. It doesn't always have to be all the extra stuff, before you get to the bedroom, right? It could be literally, man, you open the door again, and hey, you put the dishes in the dishwasher. It could be something simple as that.
Right.
But sometimes what we'll do in marriages is we walk on eggshells, or sometimes we don't, but walk on eggshells and we won't say it. Well, a lot of times we want to have expectations that we don't express, and that's something I think people need to work on. I know I've done it, and I didn't express it. I'm like, literally by myself, like, why am I mad at her? I never told her that, right? Or and vice versa. Like I may say, like, hey, maybe you didn't tell me that, like, for real, until now, you know.
Right.
So expectation is only as good as someone's expression. If they don't express it to you, then you don't know, right? But I was gonna say this about teams. I just got done hooping today, so it's fresh in my mind, you know. I was hooping with some of my guys today, and it was fun until it wasn't, you know, because I'm a passionate dude. Like when I get on the court, I'm passionate. No matter if I have 0 points or I'm scoring every basket, I just really care about like playing the best way and trying to win and work together as a team.
Right.
And so like I'm trying to play defense. I'm like, my guy ain't gonna score, whatever. If he scores, he's not gonna score the next time, or I'm gonna help out and get a rebound, or I'm gonna lay up, I'm gonna do whatever I can. And that's with some random guys that I barely know.
Right.
Like I literally don't know them. Like I'm new to Raleigh. I've been here for a year and a half, but I just want to win and I want to do it the right way. Well, why would I not want to do it with my wife, who I love? I've been with her 17 years dating, 15 years, about to be 15 years married. So it's like, wait, I should be like pulling myself back, like calm down. Now, don't get me wrong. You play on teams, you have arguments. Sometimes you're like, hey, homeboy, you missed a spot. You didn't do this. Or you may be like, he may tell you, hey, bro, like this happened tonight. I tried to overhelp on defense, and my boy, he told me I got it. He can't shoot. Just let him do what he do. And I tried to help and overplay the play, and my guy got open and scored, right? So sometimes that happens. But if you have those good dialogues, or even if it's heated, at least it can help you to get to a place of better. Here's the thing. When I think about that quote that you just said, I was thinking about this. Like, you remember when you were in high school or middle school, or remember the beanies, little jerseys? You ever like had to put the red or blue on?
Oh yeah.
And like it's like they used to smell terrible because everybody from every gym class used them. Yeah. Right. Well, you ever played on a team and then somebody got hurt and they had to like jump out and you was on the sidelines and just like get in for him, and you jump in on a team. That's how it is. Kind of as marriage sometimes. Like you've been on this side of SteveVon team by myself. All I know is me. My whole life I'm worried about me. You've been on Brittany team. I know how I am. You know who you are. You know what gets you going, how you're wired, what makes you tick, what makes you happy. And then you gotta like, once you get married, you kind of like gotta throw in this beanie and sub in on a team that you're on, but you're like, I really don't know this team yet.
Right.
I think that's kind of how it feels. Right. So that's why every now and then it is a versus you, not us versus everybody else kind of thing. And so it takes time, and it takes, like, literally this happened tonight, dead serious. I was getting into a game, and they were like, let's go ahead, let's hurry up, let's play, because we pay for our playing time. Let's play. It's like, let my boy know who he playing with. Right. Because I didn't know who was on my team. And sometimes like be like that in marriage. When you first get married, you like, wait, I'm used to. Are you really
on my team?
Right. Well, I mean, it's levels to it, right? It's like, oh, I know she's on my team in romance, but maybe not when I order food. You're so used to just like, I don't have to eat this. I can just eat this, and you don't think about your spouse. Or you're like, I can just go grab this, or I can do that later. But your spouse is like, no, I'm not wired that way. So you got to learn what your teammate needs, and that's how you can make the best team. You know what I'm saying?
But I think that, like you said, the best analogy of that was, if you're that like determined to win like a basketball game, then you should be, you know, just as determined to win in the game of this marriage. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's for everybody. It's not just for us. Like, if you are married or if you're engaged or whatever, like, if you're in a committed relationship and you see it being serious, leading to marriage, especially if you're married, then you're in the sport, the game of life, and you're combined together. So if we're just as serious about winning certain things in life, then we should take it that serious in winning in our marriage.
Yeah, you know, we big Kobe fans, and I'm like, Mamba mentality. We go hard. And it's like, what about marriage mentality? Like what about if you really, really care about togetherness and unity, like, you know, and not to be churchy, but the Bible says where there's unity, God commands the blessing. He doesn't just give it, he like makes it happen. So there's blessing in unity. And so it's like, honestly, I'm gonna be real with you, we sit down at meetings every week at jobs, we coordinate different things, and we make sure things are on point and make sure that the logistics are good, right?
Yeah.
And we make sure we're on one accord with our team, and then we don't necessarily do that with our spouses.
Right.
Like, or, and it's not just spouses. You don't do it with your kids.
Right.
You talk to your kids all week. They're going to school, they're coming home, you're making food, you watch a show or whatever, you go to sleep, and you don't even know what's happening in your home, right? Like, how are you game planning? I mean, you've been talking about that, like, okay, we game planned for this last 2 years, but what's next? Like, what's different, you know? And that's the part where I think sometimes that's where arguments actually happen, is in those hidden crevices of uncertainty and sometimes lack of conversation and communication.
Yeah. Lack of conversation and miscommunication, like both.
Yeah.
So, okay. So the first question is it's not really a question. I really want us to share a little bit, being transparent of what we kind of dealt with. One of the things that we dealt with this week, very specific incident I'll give is for us to talk about is we had a discussion about quality time. QT. We talked about it. Yeah, QT. We talked about it before on a previous podcast about our love languages, and my love language is one of my love languages is probably quality time. Yeah, it's my number one. And so I want to talk about what happened, what went wrong in that situation, and kind of how we were able to navigate through it.
Yeah.
So for me, just to give a little context to it, SteveVon had been working from home with everything happening with COVID and, the pandemic and all that stuff. So we had kind of gotten a little bit used to, I would say, like just being around one another more.
Right.
But even in that's still technically not quality time.
Right. Yeah.
But it was still presence.
Just more available time.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, did you want to say something?
No, I was just saying, like, I would just be here. Like, I'd be working upstairs in the office. And if you needed me, you could just had access to me more so.
Yeah. And so, and then sometimes I could come in here and work with him and get some stuff done. And like, we could be like kind of just near each other. And that's always cool. We always like working together. We literally, before we moved here, were youth pastors together at a church. And they had our offices set up where my office was right outside of his. And we were like, no, that's not how we work. So we like rearranged our offices and put them together and did like a tea desk. And like whenever he wanted to be zoned out editing or doing whatever, he would put his headphones on and I would be on my side. Like we just enjoy each other's company. And not every time
we work well together. So.
Yeah, and we would have disagreements at work and everything, but we could still be around each other. Yeah. So anyways, back to the QT argument of the week. So what happened was I was saying the pandemic allowed me to have more access to SteveVon, so it's been an adjustment now with him going back into the office and not having him around. And so I talked to him like I don't know a few weeks ago about me getting quality time, because on the weekends is your time off except for Sunday. You work on Sunday. He's a youth pastor, for those who don't know. So on Fridays and Saturdays are his days off. And I'm like, Friday and Saturday, that's like my day to have you. And I don't want to share you with anybody. Like, I'm cool to hang out with other people, but if we're hanging out with other people, that's like that's not considered full quality time with just me, because I'm also an introvert, which we're going to talk about that on another podcast, because we're opposite. Like, I'm an introvert, he's an extrovert.
Opposite attract like magnets,
Jay-Z said. So so because we're opposite, like he probably views us going hanging out with friends, being around everybody, that's still us getting our quality time in. But for me, that's not quality time for me, because I'm entertaining everybody else. I'm like,
it's shared time.
I'm exerting all this energy to like, because introverts is just a lot to like be around people. And so like I'm like trying to exert so much energy to be around and be present, be in the moment and not be standoffish or whatever. But at the same time, I don't want to seem like I'm just cooped under him and I'm not able to socialize with other people. So it's like I'm kind of not trying to be dependent on him around others, so people can like really see that I can be amongst them.
You do pretty good, babe.
Yeah, I try. It really is a true work of.
Well, I mean, like I would say this. It's not necessarily. It could kind of work. It's I don't know if anybody's heard of Working Genius, But in a sense, it's kind of that same thing. Like the working genius, if I can remember it, it's the word widget and all the letters are acronyms. But like you have your working genius, right, where you're like you thrive. Then you have your working frustration, right? And it's the top and bottom. There's another one I can't remember, but that's what it probably feels like for you. It's like, I can do it, but this is frustrating. Yeah, I'm like, when do we? It's like it, like wearing a sweater that itches. Like, when do I get out of this? You know what I'm saying? Like, not that you can't wear it.
And it's the closer people are to me, the easier it is.
Right.
But a lot of times, here it's developing that relational equity. All of those things. So
and that takes time.
It takes time. Yeah. So, and when he's around me, he's just naturally that person. So it makes me feel more comfortable. But at the same time, I brought that into the conversation as context because we did have time where we spent with friends this weekend, but it wasn't time for he and I. Right. And so when we went throughout the weekend and I kind of felt like, hey, the next day, SteveVon was like up here playing this game, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to give him some time to play the game, whatever. And so I went downstairs and got some things done while he was doing that. And then, because I don't want to be a nag, like, turn that game off, come spend time with me. Like, if he needs to decompress and do whatever he needs to do, I want him to do that as well. Right. So when I was downstairs, I don't know if I fell asleep or whatever. I think I fell asleep. Yeah. And then when I got up, you were like, I'm about to leave and go do something. Where did you go? Do you remember?
Did I go play basketball?
Was it? I think it might have been basketball. Yeah. He was like, oh, yep, it was basketball.
Oh, yep, you remember.
He was like, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go play basketball really quick, and I'll be back. And at this point, it was like 6-something, and the sun goes down around 8 o'clock.
I remember it was 6:45, and I'm like, she's like, yeah, just make sure you're back at 7:30. I'm like.
No, I didn't. I didn't say 7:30. I said a specific, like, indicator for you to know it's time to come home. I was like, when the sun goes down and it's
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I said when the sun goes down and after it gets dark, can you please like be home? Yeah. And then he was like, okay, yeah, I'll be home, when it gets dark. And I was like, okay. So I didn't give a time because I knew it was already late and it was close to getting dark. So I didn't want to like be like, yeah, only an hour. But I knew like, okay, surely he'll do that. But SteveVon, I don't know, he texted me. No, I didn't fall asleep yet. Yeah, that's when I fell asleep, right? Because you texted me. So he had texted me while I had fell asleep and let me know that he was going to he was going to extend his time of playing basketball. Yeah. And I didn't see that. And so I woke up to, I think you called me to try to figure out if we needed anything or something like that on your way home. And I'm being woke up. So clearly that's not the best state to have a conversation. Right. Because you're like kind of startled. And then I look at my phone and see the time and I'm like, what the heck? It's like 9 something. It was getting close to 10. Yeah. And I'm
it was 9. I remember it was 9:10.
Yeah, but you were still out. So I'm like, by the time he gets home, it could be possibly close to 10. And it's Saturday. He has to get up for work in the morning. So
not 9:10. It was like 9:05 or 9:10 in the gym. That's probably the other part.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that it was like early 9, but you weren't home yet.
But that's what I'm saying. This is another thing you didn't know. Like the park is like 2 minutes down the street. So that's another thing that if you would have knew that. Yeah,
but once again, y'all watching us have a dialogue right now. But I'm saying that you were calling me to see if we needed anything.
Right. I get what you're saying. Stop.
So that takes another, it wasn't like coming straight home. Right. Because I think we did need food and all of that stuff. So it was like, but I asked you to be home before, a certain time. And like, so I was just waking up. So I was frustrated. Like, I thought you said you would be home and, this whole thing. And so I was very, very upset at it. And so when he got home, we had a little dialogue.
Yeah, a little combo, a little conversation.
And so for me, the reason why I was upset, it wasn't so much even about what time it was. That was brought into the situation because I did ask him specifically to be home by a certain time, I guess you could say. And it seemed like, okay, you disregarded that. Like, if you knew that I didn't respond to you on text, then just call me.
Right, that's true.
And so I didn't get a call until it was time to come home. So I feel like, okay, that was not cool. Yeah. But then it wasn't really so much about the time more than it was the lack of time that I was able to spend with you, because all day I was kind of like taking the back seat to let you get time for yourself. Yeah. And so that was like, for me, I was just like pushing off time that I wanted to spend with you, like catching up on shows and starting Bridgerton, and like which we still haven't conquered. But yeah, like I was disappointed, one, and then I was like frustrated about the whole situation. That's what I was trying to explain. Yeah. But so tell me from your side.
Honestly, it's new news to me, some stuff. Like, I didn't know. I mean,
really? Even though we had this discussion?
No, we had a discussion, but I'm saying, like, I'm talking about the time frame. Like, it's new that's what you were processing when I called. Oh, okay. Which makes sense. Like, processing, excuse me, when I called. It makes sense. It's like, oh, yeah, you know me. I'm like, all right, well, what we going to eat, though? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're like, nah, don't try to get through the conversation. Yeah. One, because I compartmentalize. That's most men, right? So I'm like, okay, let me just get this done. If I can get the food, we can come back to this conversation, because I know it's not going anywhere. It's going to be there. It's going to be there when I get home. We can talk about it on the phone, on the drive. It doesn't matter, But then it's like, no, you're just trying to talk. You're just trying to get the food and talk over me so we don't have to have this conversation, which is probably true. Like, just to be honest, like you're like I said, you
don't like conflicts.
Yeah, and I definitely don't like conflict, like, without us together. I'm like away, and it's like I'm trying to get food. I'm trying to get this one thing done so this doesn't take longer, so that I can get home and we can talk through it. So that's, I mean, this is something you didn't know.
Processes.
Yeah. So it's, and that's the thing about marriage and bringing two people together. It's like your process is way different. Like, no, we're gonna talk about this. Yeah. And I'm like, well, we will, but let me just do this part first. And it's both to a good common goal to, like, okay, we still need to eat. I still need to get home. We still need to talk about it. Yeah. But it's just in reverse, certain things, like me personally and how you felt. And then the other part is, I feel like now, and I think about it, I probably disregarded that to you. So I probably do another thing on another layer on it. Like, so now you didn't tell me. You text me, so that was you get a little star for that one. But, like, besides that, you could have called Steve. Like, no, let's be honest, right? Because like, we grow up in this merit system, meritocracy. Like, you do good, you get this, right? So when you're a kid, you oh, mommy, I did good today. They gave me 5 stars, right? And if you're bad, like, I used to work at a daycare, it's like I had 5 reds today. Like, what did he do today? Well, one, you don't know. Did he eat this morning? Did he sleep bad last night? Maybe all of that is a culmination of reason why he had a bad day. But instead, we just pick wins and losses, and nobody sees the gray area in the middle. Like, why? You know what I'm saying? Like, for real, I was thinking about, I told you this earlier real quick. I said, I've been feeling better. Like, this, no headaches lately, this week, and a couple of things. And I've just changed, like, my time frame, like, of when I eat, when I go to sleep. And it's because of that reason. Yeah. But when I was tired, I was moody. And I'm probably still have my little moods, but I'm saying, like, I was more frustrated. I don't know if you can feel that. And it's because my schedule was weird. It was off. I was just not feeling my best, And ever since COVID, I had that kind of, like, off week, and it kind of just coming back right now. But what I'm saying is now, and this goes back to what you're saying, like, you were just waking up. Yeah. So your natural state of mind is like, wait, what? What time is it? Yeah. Yeah. Wait, it's not.
You're not home yet?
Wait, is it dark? Yeah. Because I thought last time we talked, we said when it's dark, just come home. Right. You know what I'm saying? So now you asking me about what I want to eat. Like, no, wait, what's going on? We could have rode together. Like, many things that go through our minds when we're on two different sides. And it's not that you're trying to fight against each other. You're just in two different, like, thought processes. Right. And even with knowing that, it still, in some ways, takes a time to process. And so for me, I was in that mode, like, but wait, I text. Like,
that's all he kept saying. I text you.
But, like, this is better than all the other times. Like the other times, I probably was like, okay, babe, yeah, and then I didn't do my best getting it home at the time or whatever. But at least I texted. Like, so I was hoping for me, from my side, was like at least to be not rewarded, acknowledged, right? Not the gold star, but at least, SteveVon, I see you. Yeah. You didn't do the rest of the stuff, but you did that. And so, but that's all expectation, right? I don't even think I told you that day, but now you're hearing it. So expectation helps, or me expressing that will help with my expectation to be received correctly. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But still, back to this argument. That's what I was feeling.
Okay.
So after you expressed yourself, how were you feeling?
So after you came home and we kind of were able to dialogue about it, I think it still kind of, it got a little, I can't remember if this was the same thing, and I like kind of needed some space for a second, and then we came back to it.
I think it was the same thing.
It was?
Yeah,
okay.
if I'm not mistaken.
So we took a little moment, got a little space, and we've learned to do that. Not like in the past.
The young days.
We didn't do that. It would get heated like bad. And now we've learned to give each other the space that we need. Let the person decompress, and eventually they'll come back. Like,
well, I mean, we also learned that let's drop a pin here through counseling too. Yeah. We kind of started on our own because honestly, we didn't have that much counseling literally until like this year for real. Let's be honest. And no shame in our game is Unfiltered. And I mean, it's also like, I was going to mention this earlier. You were talking about counseling and stuff. It's like, you get married. Like, think about this. You go to a college for a 4-year degree. They have you in school for 4 years, so many hours that you have to have before you get a diploma. Yeah. Right. And you go to school almost every day. Yeah. For those 4 years, you almost have to not do anything else to get that diploma. Yeah. To work at a job that might not even be in place anymore because these jobs are moving and changing so fast, and people have to get a different career. Like, I know some people that went to school for this and now they're just doing something on the side. Right. Mm-hmm. Now you're talking about marriage, right? Right. And according to what it is, it's established in the Bible. It's established from God, and it's established for forever. And that may be a podcast we talk about later as well. But if that's the truth, then why we only get like 4 sessions before we get married for something that's going to be for forever? Right. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So it sounds like it's going to be set up for failure. And that's why 6% of people don't really argue, right? 94%. They're
satisfied with how they handle conflict.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. They're not satisfied because they are.
Only 6% is satisfied.
Right. And then the 94 isn't, right? Right. And the reason why is because they haven't had the proper training to be satisfied. Right. And so I think with that being said, it's been certain things that mean you kind of like had to learn on the go, on the fly, in disappointment and sadness. And then our counselor kind of confirmed, like, whoa, I remember when we talked to her, she's like, you guys learned all that by yourself? Right. I kind of commend you. Like, because I used to be like, nah, I'm going to go find Britt. I'm going to talk to her. Because my main goal is really to love her and let her know, I just want us to be better after this. But better doesn't always mean I have to have an answer. Right. Sometimes space is the answer. Right. And now she can sit with herself. Now I can sit with myself and really process, not just getting out of an argument, but actually getting to resolve.
I think that's also, it comes from the Bible, because we've been trained and we have learned that don't let the sun go down on your wrath and all of this stuff. And I've been doing, like, in creating this podcast, I've been listening to more things and getting more resources and, doing more research. And I actually heard somebody say that's not really like a good, healthy thing. And I don't think that's even what the Bible was really talking about. Right. Anyways, but like, there's nothing wrong with you, because what does it do if we continue to just beat the horse? Like, like, oh, we ain't going to sleep until we solve this. And then now we're tired. Not just beat the horse,
like the statement, beat a dead horse.
A dead horse,
it's already dead.
Exactly. And we're just like, we're tired and we're up and we're fussing. And it's just this nonstop battle versus like when you take time and rest and you are able to walk away from it, you really can see, you zoom out and see like, what's really the valuable thing in this situation? Like, is it worth us continually going on, arguing about this, disagreeing about it, and you're able to come back with it with clear eyes and like with a really refreshed mind. Do you remember that one time we was arguing up, set up the sundown. It was like, it wasn't like an argument, but it started getting to like, we're going to talk about this. And I remember sitting at the table. I went from the couch to the table and we was talking, and I felt like it was getting better than I just missed it and went back to it. And you're like, I thought we was out of this. Like, that's the part, like, because like you're trying to just hurry up to get to a resolve versus like, it's okay. We kind of pause, right? Yeah. Even games have half times. Like, so what happens if you do that with your marriage? Hey, we need a timeout. We need a halftime. We need a break. So with that, I want to go into our point. The next point, it's, I saw this social media post and it said, attack the issue, not your spouse. And I thought that was so good. Just remembering to attack the issue and not one another. If you hear that, if you're engaged right now or dating and you hear this, just start practicing now.
Just make up an argument.
Because a lot of times, no, seriously, don't make up an argument.
No, I'm saying do it impromptu. Like, hey, I was just thinking when you said it, like, put it on the board. Let's or put it in a bowl and pick one out in the bowl, because it's gonna be any one you want to pick. It could be communication, sex, finances, whatever. Pick it out and just see how you guys would actually have a conversation.
Yeah.
Because I mean, honestly, like, we do that with other stuff. Like,
right.
Why not go ahead and try to do a little trial run?
Yeah.
And work through it before you have to really get through it, because that's the worst part. You
definitely need to practice that and get some premarital counseling.
We
or
need
whatever.
to start some unfiltered cards.
Yeah, I really do want to do that. Actually, that is one of my goals of this. But that, anywho, but I was gonna say that we need to practice that ahead of time. You know what I'm saying? And even in our marriage, like, having that in your mentality, of course, once again, easier said than done. Yeah. But attack the issue and not your spouse, because a lot of times we get into the space where we're on the defense and you're wanting to defend what you believe is right. Yeah. And you want to, because we say it all the time, you're not right or you're wrong, right? If you're saying you're wrong, that indicates that, okay, you're the one that's right. You know what I'm saying? So, like, we're always fighting to be right or to be heard or to be understood. Yeah. We always, for me, I always want empathy, and I feel misunderstood in arguments. So I want you to understand where I'm coming from. Yeah. But a lot of times we just are thinking different, and you're not going to understand. You get what I'm saying? Like, or that person, it may take them a little bit more to get to that space where they do understand. Yeah. So it's figuring out that I'm not attacking you. We're not attacking one another. We're on the same team. Right. We're not opposites. We're not opposing. We're not, opposing teams. We're together.
Not opponents.
Yeah, not opponents. And so I have a question. It's what's a way that you struggle to communicate during arguments? And I can let you think about that for a second. If you need.
What's a way, or what's a certain type of communication that I struggle with?
Yeah. So, like, for instance, for me, I struggle with, and he's going to laugh probably or smile because he knows that this is true. I struggle in arguments to not use absolutes. See, I told you would laugh. And so I always, and I just did it now. I usually, always? Like I do that all the time. Like, I'll be like, you never, or you always.
And I get real dramatic, like, never?
Yeah.
So never means 0% chance.
Yeah. He recently, like, within the past, I don't know, 2 years, 2-3 years, has been doing that. And
Please define that.
We bust out laughing every time. It makes me laugh. I'm like, dang. I mean, not always, but you usually, so, I struggle with that, and there's a specific term. It's called hyperbolic language. When you say the absolutes, when you use those types of language in your disagreements, and the thing about it is you can instantly put the person on the defense when you use that type of language. And I know it to be true, because I feel like that's why you always kind of get like, wait a minute, always, like, come on now, so you mean to tell me I can't ever do anything right? Like, so, like, it can be very offensive, and that's why you get on the defensive, right? So that's one of the things that I struggle with. And so, like, how I'm combating that and trying to work better at that, and you probably noticed it a lot lately, is I try to now use I statements. And so with I statements, it just helps me to own my own feelings, own how I'm feeling in the situation, and helps me to describe the problem to him, right? And not put all the weight on what he's doing wrong, and it's all about him, but really taking ownership and standing in what I feel. And we actually got that from our counselor. She's the first one that kind of gave us I statements. And I can actually share a little bit, just very briefly, some examples of it. So I statements work like this: I feel blank, which is an honest statement about how you're feeling. And then you say, because blank, and the blank is what is the action or behavior that's triggered the feeling. Then the next sentence will be, I want or need blank, and the blank is say specifically what will help you with the issue. That's good. And then the last part is I will blank, and the blank is say what you can and will do to help the matter. And I did that. We had a disagreement the other day, and I did that, and it was so helpful. I don't know fully how to do all of that in the moment, but I do know how to say I feel, and take ownership of my feelings. And not make it so much about, you know what, you always do this, right? Like, and it comes off as attacking, right? It gets from, like, instead of
I feel is like you make me feel, and it's like,
right.
Well, I wasn't trying to make you feel that way. And then now we like having a conversation about what each other did
exactly
versus what each other feel like
right.
personally, because that's the part that you want to help to heal. I don't want to hurt her. I love this
right.
girl. This
exactly.
is my baby. You know what I'm saying? But at times, one thing that I realized that's true is you gonna protect yourself because you've been with yourself the most,
right?
And that's also, I know people probably like, what? Why would you protect yourself if you love that person? It's like,
it's just natural.
It's natural. Like the part of arguing, the reason why you argue is because it's tied to attacks.
Mm-hmm.
You feel like you're being attacked. So then you're like, I want to argue this down. Here's the thing. Just like in a courtroom, they have the lawyers that argue for defendants in two different sides. Well, this person gets evidence. They're going to take that same evidence and they're going to cross-examine it. And sometimes you do that in marriage when at the same time, and I'm sitting here thinking like, while you're saying that, like, does that make sense? And it does. But it's not about the how, it's more so the attitude, because you probably do need to cross-examine certain things. That's what you're saying. Attack the issue, not the person. So,
exactly.
Okay, if the issue is finances, well, like, you never tell me about this. You just had this on your own. You do this, and we're supposed to have this together, and you bought that, and I didn't know. And I just said you versus saying, hey, baby, like, I want to make sure that we are good financially, and when we do that, I feel like blah blah blah.
Yeah, like for instance, with our quality time situation, I said I feel that I'm not getting quality time with you.
Yeah.
And because of that, it makes me feel like such and such, you know, and what I need or what I want from you is on Fridays and Saturdays for you to carve out some time where we can be together. And then what I will do is, you know, try to help in scheduling us a date night or, you know, providing this or that or having these conversations with you to let you know where I'm at. That's an example of how now I try to approach it. I don't get it right every time. And sometimes we kind of fumble through it. And then I realize, wait a minute, did I take ownership first? And then I go back and I'm like, wait a minute, I apologize. Let me say this. I acknowledge that this is my feelings, this is how I feel, you know, and then like I take ownership, I feel this way. And I think the other day when we had the disagreement, I did that instantly. I didn't go through the whole back and forth thing. Instead, I started with owning what I was feeling, and it set us up for a calmer disagreement. And then you instantly went into owning your feelings. You didn't even have to, I didn't have to say, well, I'm going to use I statements right now. Okay.
Right.
It was just like
very passive aggressive.
Exactly.
I'm not going to say the word. Pretty lame. Let's just say that, you know.
But like some people will do that, and then that turns the person off from the I statements. So like I just owned my part of it, and it instantly triggered in him, well, what part am I playing? And then he owned his side, and we were actually able to just navigate through it so smooth. It was one of the best disagreements we've had.
It's like, well, let's try this again.
So that's one of the things for me. Can you identify something that you struggle with in disagreements that we may have had in the past or recently?
I mean, I know you're gonna probably not laugh, but you agree that like I deflect, and I'm just trying to be. This is unfiltered, so no judgment. But like I deflect, and it was crazy because I was thinking about it with myself, and then I ended up talking to you about some of it. And it's like sometimes deflection is not bad, like, and really the heart of my deflection is not to just like, hey, you did this too. It's more so. We just literally talked about this. And it was actually a really good conversation. It's really me finding evidence, not to say you did something wrong. It's like, well, it's similar to this. And I don't like most times you're going to pull on the evidence that you've seen that's in your home. And they're like, I was watching the show the other day. This is kind of like that. No, like,
so let me help a little bit here, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So what he's communicating is that not so much, because when you say evidence, sometimes like I don't even really like that language because it sounds like, oh, we're in court and we're battling against each other. Once again, like you're the
more like an example.
That's what I was going to say. Like you're trying to give me an example of what you're trying to communicate.
Right.
So like, because we both are visual type of learners and like, you know what I'm saying? And like experiences help us to learn. So I think that that's what you try to do in those examples, which is like provide me an example of what you're feeling. I think the worst ones are when you pull on examples from within us and different things that we face, because it brings back up something else. And
now it's like layered on something else.
This isn't about that. This isn't about me. This isn't about that situation. This is about what we're talking about right now. And so like, but and hearing you say that, I understand what your heart is and your motive.
Yeah.
And the better ones, I'm not gonna say they're still good, but they're better when you do try to give me an example outside of it.
Right. And I mean, more so, it's just like, it's not even just like, it's just who I am. It's how I'm wired. It's like, I'm a creative, so I write music, rap. So it's like correlations. I'm a speaker, so I have to have correlations to give an example. Yeah. Right. And that's a lot of times, like when you're reaching, and sometimes it is a reach, don't get me wrong. Sometimes I be reaching like Stretch Armstrong or like Michael Jordan on Space Jam. Right. But at the same time, it's like, I'm just like, really at the end of the day, really wanting you to understand my perspective as well. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, I want us to win. I want us to be together. I love you so much. And so it's like, I'm trying to do that, but at the end of the day, I do see the other side of like, that's deflecting. It's also making her feel less than. It makes her feel like, dang, you just used that example of me. Mm-hmm. While we're in this one, you're gonna use that one. That doesn't help, Right. And then at the same time, I could even use some of my examples that I do. I could be like, hey, what you did, it reminded me of how you felt when I did that to you, and that probably would feel better than me pointing a finger. But I think that the root of it is all just everybody wants to feel heard, number one, and understood. Yeah. And so I feel like that's what it is that you're trying to do. Yeah. But I think the better way is what we kind of navigated through just now, is just to acknowledge what you're processing and what you're feeling in that moment. Yeah. And then that will help me to get pulled into where you are. You know what I'm saying? Because if you tell me, hey, I feel hurt when you say this or that, then I'm going to be like, whoa, I never meant to hurt you. Yeah. So it's going to instantly make me take the space of empathy, like, okay, wait, I apologize, I don't want to hurt your feelings. Right. I don't want to, so instantly I go into this place of like care, right, over defense, and like defending my behavior and trying to prove to you, and try to be understood in that same way. So that's why I think just the I statements work, and just taking ownership in the moment. And so that's going to be something that we are navigating through all the time. It's a new tool in our arsenal, and so I feel like the more that we both remember, how do I feel in the moment? How is this making me feel? Yeah. Then it will help us to communicate better. Because for me, when I do that, it helps me to stay calm. Yeah. And but I actually want to go straight into that, because let's talk about triggers. Because in the midst of arguments, you have triggers, right? Yep. And a trigger is defined as an event or a situation that causes something to have an extreme reaction of fear, being upset, anger, especially because they remember a traumatic experience. So we all have triggers, and I want to know, how do you navigate through the triggers? Because for me, there's situations of how I grew up, and if I'm being truly unfiltered, watching the way my dad handled conflict and anger, it has, created something within not only me, but my siblings. And it's almost like low key, kind of like glorified in a way, like, we Crawfords kind of thing. That's my maiden name. And so I've kind of like pushed against that. Like, I don't want to, because I've seen myself in a marriage explode and just do things because of like, it's what I saw, what I'm saying? And not that my dad's like a bad guy or anything like that, but he had a lot of trauma in his life that he didn't, get the help for and get to process. And he's still navigating through it now as an adult. Right. And so, if we don't deal with those things, we spill over that trauma onto others around us. And so trauma triggers, they transfer, man. Yeah. It's true.
And so like dealing with that, it caused me to, self-reflect, because at the beginning of our marriage, I was explosive. I would yell, I would curse, I would do all of the things, in the midst of an argument. Like, it was very bad. And it took me, and it's just being real, y'all. I don't think I've ever shared.
You doing good.
I ain't shared none of this with nobody. Real. But, like, I had to navigate through that and seeing that pattern, and say, I don't want to be that way. Number one, I want children. I don't want my kids to get that, because if my husband's getting that, it doesn't just stop because it's my kid, right? Exactly. Like, so I have to figure this out. I have to navigate through this. And so I started to do some work just like on different things, like how, if I feel like I'm going to raise my voice to a certain level, if I feel like I'm going to get to a certain point of anger, it's better for me to walk away.
Yeah.
Like, and I had to, and that was hard for him because he's like, doesn't like walking away.
Yeah.
So it still was a situation, but it was better, you know?
Yeah.
And so now we've still discovering more ways. And so for me, navigating through triggers, I had to first identify them and what it was like that could cause me, because once again, it points back to like past experiences, traumatic experiences, and it causes this explosion of like emotions. And so I had to identify that and get real with myself and say, okay, we got to deal with this, because I don't want to be treating my husband like this. I don't want him to feel like this. I don't want to put this on my kids when they get here. So I have to identify it and figure out better ways to handle conflict. What about you?
Yeah, babe, I'm so proud of you actually for sharing. That's like tough, because I mean, who wants to share that part about themselves, right? We always talk about, I was literally thinking about this earlier, we always want to like show our highlights. Like, and I was telling you this last night, we were watching the game. It's like, man, all these highlights are showing every made shot. We don't know the narrative of this game though. We watch the game, we can see what really happened. Like, you know, our family, like when we Laker fans, Dallas fans, we used to tell people, don't tell us the score because we got it taped. And like, so what? If the game's already over, it doesn't matter. Like, no, it matters to us because we want to see every moment. We want to see how it actually happened. We want to see how they navigated from this situation, that situation, being on fourth down or being down a certain amount of points and coming back, right? I'm a Kobe fan, so a lot of that happened. He would hit game winners. You want to, the game winner doesn't matter if I don't know that they were down, right? And so a lot of times we'd be like, don't tell us the score, right? And a lot of times what people see is like the happy face, YouTube family, SteveVon and Britt, right? You know, and they don't know what we had to battle through and went through, and when we were young and what we were going through today. It's not just babies. It's our marriage. It's sometimes business. It's sometimes ministry. It's sometimes family. It's a whole bunch of things that goes all into this. When you come to being in a marriage, it's not just your one little side that you like. It's everything inclusive inside of that. And so for me, when it comes to the triggers, for me, I don't like when people get loud. Like, I just don't like when they get loud at me or they curse at me. I don't like it, and I try not to do it. But if you do it, I typically match the energy. And then I really get mad at myself because now I'm like, this is out of character. This is not really me, because I'm really not like that. But one thing I would say to be really honest, like you said, open and transparent. Is that what it is? Hot. The trust. The hot. Honest, open, and transparent is that, like, because we want to be really a resource of help here. Is like when you used to do that early on, I would walk away, and that wasn't smart either. That wasn't necessarily wise, but it also probably was wise initially. But you can walk away and it's still gonna be there. You're gonna still have that conversation. Still gonna have the argument. It's still gonna be heated possibly, and you gotta reheat it, like leftovers, right? And it's literally a leftover conversation, right? And one of the things I would say is, like you said, like traumas, triggers, whatever, are passed down, they're transferred, and you can either let them transfer or let them transform you, because you can look at it and be like, I'm gonna do something different, you know? And I was like, one day I was sitting there thinking like, dang, like, I got that from my dad, and I love my dad. My dad is an amazing guy. He was sweet to my mom. I know he's not perfect. Like, I know my mom, and pray for him too. And so, and he would say that, but he would walk away. So at a young age, I would see him just walk out and walk away. He would never touch my mom, would never put his hands on her. He was a good guy. But still walking away wasn't a good example either. So I started to do that because what I thought, like, hey, I'll walk away. Well, I'll walk away, and I would just, back in the day, I would just go to the basketball court, or I'll go get in the car, or I'll just like try for a moment and then still come back home to the same conversation. Right. And so
that was immaturity on my part.
But I mean, at the end of the day, we both were super uber young, back to the minimum frontal lobe, right? Not a full frontal lobe. Like, I'm literally, I freed myself the other day because I was very ashamed about it. I'm like, man, we were going through tough times, but we were just young. And they used to say young and dumb, and I understand it now.
Yes, because like, you don't have the right. It's like your decision making part of your brain is not fully developed.
Like, everything's not there.
Duh, that's why you're dumb.
You know, so, but that was like kind of, now me and Brittany be like, I'm like, dang, we got other rooms in here. I'm about to leave this house. I pay rent here. You know what I'm saying? But I love the part that you said that you started to own it. Like, and I had to start owning it and say, wait, maybe I can just step away. I don't have to leave the house. Okay, how can I go to a room? How can I do something else? Maybe I can wash some clothes, wash some dishes, play a game. Next thing you know, we can come back and it's not so hostile. It's not so nuclear. It's more calm, and we can have a conversation. Maybe that's what's wrong with our country. If we just stop having wars against each other and just sit down and calm down for a second, we can actually find some resolve, right? And when you said that, because we're renting right now, we'll be homeowners sooner or later. I realized with renting, you can place blame. Like when you're owner, you like if your grass ain't cut, you gotta cut you gotta cut your own grass, right? If a pipe bursts in your house, you gotta go find somebody at Lowe's, or you gotta do it yourself. But if something happens right now, I'm gonna call the maintenance man.
Right.
In marriage, there's no maintenance man. You are the maintenance man. You have to work on your marriage. You have to own that thing. If you don't, if you're renting it, then you're probably gonna lose it essentially.
That's good. That's so good. And that's so true. Like when I started to own my feelings and own what I was like going through and processing, it helped me. Like even taking ownership of what he was feeling and trying to tell me how he was feeling. Yeah. So he would tell me, I don't like being yelled at. I don't like being cursed at, whatever. And then I would have to, not in the moment most times, but as I matured and got better and started to own my feelings and how to handle conflict, I would say, okay, well, I apologize. I apologize for yelling. I apologize for cursing, and like now, I only get to that place if I'm like heated. You know what I'm saying?
And to be honest and be fair to you too, you only get to that place, especially now, you're way more wiser. I'm so proud of you. You've made so many strides, and I know I've tried and done some things as well, but I'm literally like, I could cry when I think about like where you are now, babe. You've like done such a great job. Especially without any help, like no counseling, no real like help. We just started doing that in marriage, but no personal like help. Yeah. But what I would say is I also had to realize I would be the trigger sometimes. I would like try to like keep talking like because I want to get to a resolve, and that whole like mismanaging of scripture of like don't let the sun go down on your wrath. Like no, we got to fix it before we go to sleep. That's not of God. And it's like, I'm actually making it worse. You think God's proud of that? He's not happy about that. I'm not fixing this, man. We're up 5 hours trying to figure this thing out. We're like, or we talk about it for an hour or two, and then we go like try to do something different. Then it comes back up because we never resolved it. But we don't have to force it because we're married. Like we're married. It's going to be there. So we can have a conversation and come back to the drawing board with a more clear head, clear heart, better mind. And one thing that's true, because I was thinking about the scripture, it says if you have an offense against your brother, bring it to him, right? And it seems like it's a friend conversation or to your siblings when you read the scripture, but it's anyone, right? Yeah. And it says the key part of the scripture says if they receive you, you receive the friend. Or if they forgive you, you receive a friend, right? You receive a brother. In marriage, if they receive you, you've received a friend. Yeah. And some people are married. They may have love for each other, but they're not friends. Right? They're not cordial. They're just like, we're keeping it together for the kids, or we're keeping it together because, hey, we don't want to split, or we're keeping it together because of God, or we're keeping it together because this covenant is the church. And it's like, but really, are you really dealing with the issue? Because if you're keeping it together for all those things, when the kids graduate, it's a wrap. Yeah. Like when you stop really wanting to go to church, it's a wrap. Like what happens if your faith has shattered? If your faith gets shattered, it's a wrap, right? You got to really do the work with one another, right, for it to stay together.
Facts. So recognize it's good. It's a long one, y'all, but it's worth it talking about arguments and trying to figure out communication. It's very foundational to your relationship, especially if you're dating, engaged. Like this is the time to build that foundation the correct way and get these tips and takeaways that we'll go through in a second and try to help you. And counseling is very important. Don't let anyone put a stigma on it for you. Like do, the work, like take the counseling. It will give you the tools necessary. Cause I wish we had this. Like I wish we had these tools when we first started.
I used to say this about 5 years at least
of like craziness. So like, take the tools, use them in your arsenal for when it's time to navigate through these things, but I did want to share this quote. I'm all about the research and the quotes if y'all haven't noticed yet, but there was a quote that said, just because your feelings are valid doesn't mean your behavior is. And I thought that was so good. And it makes you think like, okay, if I act out, if I, throw a fit, I
go
whatever.
Back to sips tea.
Exactly. We will. Like, just because your feelings are valid doesn't mean your behavior is. Like, you can't just be going around slapping people.
You know how many people we be slapping if we was going off of our feelings?
So, you gotta, like, you just have to
it's like
navigate
that movie he lined them up and he slapped everybody.
But it is, a lot of stuff is easier said than done. But when you have these things in your mind, it makes it easier. Like when you go to display your behavior, it's like, okay, I am this mad, I am pissed off, but like, is it a valid response for me to do said action. You know what I'm saying? And so
on the count to 10 thing, like I remember one kid said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He still wanted to fight, but the whole point is not the count. It's about thinking. It's like okay, after while I'm counting, I'm like, do I want to have a police report? Like just being. I'm just being like I'm making a joke, but like Will Smith, they're literally talking about it could possibly be charges pressed on him. Like. Like you don't think about that. You're like, oh, they're just friends. Like, no, but he can't just put his hands on people.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so it's important to recognize your triggers if you don't know them now, or like a lot of times you learn new ones when you connect your life with another person. Right. So you're going to learn them over time, but it's important to, when you recognize them, to address them and figure out ways that you can, I guess, untrigger yourself. Like for me, I need space. I need to calm down. I just need a moment so that it doesn't escalate to an unhealthy place. Like
a gun has a safety on it. You need to find a safety.
That's good.
For your triggers.
That's good. Good job, babe. Okay. He's a wordsmith, as they say.
You're so funny. You're so funny.
Okay, so that was good. I think I'm gonna leave it at that. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah. Find a safety for your trigger. So let's go into some takeaways. Y'all know we like to leave you guys with takeaways before we end the podcast. Something that you can take with you along the day, along the week, and actually put into practice. Yeah. So there are 3 steps, or it's a 3-step method to effectively have communication, or have effective communication. And this was from an Instagram account that I follow called, her name is, at Melanie Luster _ on Instagram.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you, Melanie, for this. And I'm going to shout out different accounts. Like, I don't care about things being straight, like from us and we created the steps. No, if there's a person who has amazing,
we don't know it all.
Right. We are not experts, like we told y'all.
Yes.
But if there are people who have amazing information, we will share it and we will give them a shout out. And maybe even if we make that connection, we can bring them on for an interview. Cool. Yeah. So here's the 3-step method to effective communication. It's called the CAC Method, CAC. Yes, CAC. So the first part of the CAC Method is C stands for courtesy. I'm sorry, did I say that right? I'm sorry, curiosity. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
You need courtesy
Oh my goodness. But the first C stands for curiosity. And it's before you bring it up to your partner, first get curious about what you are wanting and why. So that's back to the I thing. What am I feeling? What triggered this feeling? What is this feeling? Why is this feeling coming up right now?
That's great.
That's the first thing. The second one, baby, you want to do the second?
Yes, the second one is accountability. Accountability, which is big. Identify where you can take ownership of what you want, need, instead of blaming your partner. We kind of talked about that with the owner versus being a renter, right?
Absolutely.
Are there areas where I can meet my spouse in the middle?
So good.
It ain't Malcolm in the middle, it's marriage in the middle.
Yes, no, but seriously, it's so good because it kind of reminds me of our podcast from our episode 3 about trust, and how we kind of discovered in the moment, probably like a little, if you're churchy, Revy from God, that trust maybe doesn't start from 0 or 100. It's in the middle. It's 50, and you're constantly navigating through
constantly evolving, right?
Yeah, you're constantly evolving, constantly navigating from the 50-yard line, and not so much the 0 or 100, So yeah. That's good. So let's put that in perspective with accountability. So number 3, the last part of the C is communication. And it means that after reflecting, share with your partner. So after you reflected, not in the heat of the moment, as soon as you feel the feeling, like just take a moment. Right. That's what the first 2 steps is, just self accountability, reflection, awareness. Yeah. And taking ownership.
And self-discovery.
Yes. Self-discovery of what you're feeling. Right. And then once you are able to get all of that information, you're able to properly go to your partner and share it with them and let them know, like, hey, I feel this, right? And you're able to actually say it with confidence because you sat with it and you know your feelings, right? And then ask for, in the midst of that communication of accountability and sharing with your partner, you ask for feedback and input. And so you're going to ask how your partner feels about it and how they want to move forward. How do you feel about what I just shared? How do you feel about what I'm feeling? And then how do you want to move forward from this?
That is so good. I'm just sitting here thinking, like, you know, I'm a leader. I do a lot of things too. And sometimes I'll try to be better at my communication. And you think, like, in your marriage, like, that feeling of, like, there's feedback, like, because we don't a lot of times allot that in life. Like,
so true.
Most places don't let you do it with restaurants. They say it, but do they even really get back to you? You can call corporate about a complaint and they're going to give you a free sandwich one time, right? You get what I'm saying? It's like, and so, like, it's your job. You're like, I wish I could make a suggestion or feedback, and maybe you do and nothing happens. So to hear that, like, it's helpful because we don't get it everywhere. Yeah. And one place you should get it is at home. Yeah. With your spouse that you say you love. Yeah. Right. You know,
being open to feedback and not taking it as criticism.
Right.
You know, like feedback.
Or receiving it too. It's like, man, because we don't always get a chance to receive it.
Right. Right. And the person who's telling you, your spouse, is, I would hope, for us, I'm going to speak in experience, is that we care about each other so much. Right. And we could have walked away from multiple different situations, but it's the love and care that has kept us here. That's what we were talking about in episode 1. Love isn't enough, but it is the foundation if you have that love that's genuine and it's real, it can keep you there to develop the other things, you know? And so I feel like if you have a partner that is caring for you and genuinely does not want to hurt you, then you will be more open to the feedback that they have, because you know it's coming from a place of love. It's coming from a place of care. Right. You know? Yeah. So all of that. I hope that was helpful.
I know. I feel like it was helpful for me and you. I feel like we just had like our own session.
Seriously, this whole session was, I knew it would be important because it was on the schedule to talk about, honestly. And it just happened to fall on a week where we did have a tough week with a few disagreements, but it made it more real. It made this conversation more authentic. And you could probably feel it from us. So we hope it's helpful. And if it is, please share with someone that needs to hear this. Because, you know, we all need a little help in navigating through.
Yeah, I'm excited. I just want to go make a baby. Come on.
Ooh, okay. So, y'all, if you have a question and you want to be featured on the podcast, please feel free to leave us a voice note at the link down below in the show notes or in the description on YouTube. And if you don't want to share your voice, we want to provide our email, which is also down there, where you can send us your questions or even a topic that you guys want us to talk about. You can send that in the email down below as well. Babe, you got anything?
I just want to give you a kiss. Can I do that?
Yeah. Sorry, y'all gonna have, I'm sorry, it is what it is. I love you, baby. If you heard that, that's what my baby love. I feel like you're getting emotional. Let's go ahead and end it. So be sure to subscribe on YouTube.
Just love. I'm just in love with love.
Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube if you're watching us, or wherever you're listening to podcast, and also follow us. Go ahead and say your thing, babe.
At SteveVon and Britt. That's 2 E's, 2 V's, and 2 T's on Britt.
So follow us on Instagram. That's where you find the latest information about podcasts that are about to drop and everything going on with SteveVon and Britt. Unfiltered, and as well as our YouTube channel. So that's it for today. Till next time.
Stay unfiltered. Peace.